So changing gears a bit. This is Mario Zelia. Is that how you pronounce it? Zalia? Zalia? I think that's how you say it. This guy is a very well-known TikTok influencer in Canada. He does a lot of social media, and he's very well-known. He's got like millions of followers already. He's been doing some investigating. He's been doing some investigating on the recent election, and rightfully so, because there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of plot holes. There's a lot of suspicion. There's a lot of areas that really needs to be highlighted, including what we saw with Carleton. In that riding with Pierre Poilievre, there was 91 different candidates. They recently changed that riding to add more people. They changed the boundaries to incorporate another riding to make it one big riding. And they had 91 candidates to purposely split up the vote so that Pierre Poilievre would lose his seat. And Mario Zella went into a deep dive about this. You're gonna see the video here shortly, but it says Pierre losing his seat made absolutely no sense. So I dug into things a bit further. What I didn't know was that his riding expanded into heavy liberal territory. Exactly why Carney chose his riding right beside Pierre's instead of Edmonton, where he announced his leadership bid and where he grew up. That's a fair point. Why did he overthrow a liberal contender in Nepean? Why would he overthrow someone who's an incumbent that's been there for over a decade, that people adored and liked him, if he could have just ran in Edmonton? That's a good point. Once you factored in immigration to all these metro areas, the whole thing is mind-blowing. I'm rarely surprised, but as I was researching more, I was shocked by this too. I truly believe we are moving towards a one-party state where liberals are importing voters, which potentially could explain the fast-track system to citizenship and why they won't stop birth tourism or any other the loopholes that exist today. So here's his video they did a deep dive about, and it's bringing a lot of eyes. It's drawing a lot of attention to this particular riding, rightfully so. But here's what he says.
Pierre losing his riding just never sat well with me. He's held it for 20 years, so I decided to do some digging. Watch this. As many of you know, Pierre Poilievre has held his riding of Carleton for nearly 20 years. He was just recently beaten, and this is what his riding looks like. This is Carleton, and as you can see, it wraps around this area around there. I'll move my head out of the way. I want you to see the full area of Carleton. And this is from the Elections Canada website. His area, the region that I just showed you, it didn't look like that. In fact, in all of the other elections, it looked like this. It never had this area. Remember that. This area right here, that's brand new.
So, right there, this used to be two different ridings. There used to be Carleton, and then there used to be Carleton. I can't read what that says, but there used to be two different ridings, and just recently in 2023, after the 2021 election, when Justin Trudeau got reelected, they decided to change the boundaries. They decided to take the other riding, incorporate that into the Carleton riding, and make that one giant area. And Elections Canada and the federal government assumed that this would be okay because a lot of the northern parts of Ottawa, that's more rural land. There's not many people in that area. Well, regard the fact that while they were changing the guidelines, they also brought in a bunch of new migrants in that area. So it's becoming more and more suspicious. And I'm surprised that there's not more investigations on this particular riding. Again, why would they have 91 candidates in this one particular riding where they know Pierre Polyev is running? Why wouldn't they have the same in Toronto? Why wouldn't they have the same in other areas? They claim that, oh, it's democracy. You're allowed to have this many candidates. It's part of the vote. It's part of democracy. Why particularly in the Carleton riding? Why particularly where Pierre Polyev is riding, purposely to split up the votes to make him lose a seat? So here's more of
I'm
this.
going to shrink myself down to size so you can see that new area that was integrated with his. This is what it looked like in 2021 when they had the 44th election. And I'm going to explain all this red in just a second, and it's all going to make sense. So Pierre's area, labeled as number 88 over here, that's what he had the whole time. Before, it was integrated with this. And everything I'm taking is publicly available, so check it yourself. But this is how much he won last time, a 15% margin. Just to remind you, that's the area that he used to represent before that came into the picture in 2023. Yes, the adjustment was done recently. Let me put it to you this way. Pierre Poilievre's riding, which had always been conservative and he held for 20 years, was merged with a heavy liberal region. An area altogether that had grown by nearly 50% due to immigration. That's going to be important. Watch this. Now, this is where we get to the good part. Did you know that nearly 93% of all immigrants move into one of Canada's 44 census metropolitan areas? And I know this is talking about non-permanent residents as well, which is also calculated, is very similar percentage, which is almost the 93%. But when you have that, that's why metropolitan areas like Ottawa, the whole Greater Toronto area, includes Burlington, Oakville, Milton's getting there too. Look at Hamilton. And I know this says Hamilton here, but this is the outskirts of Hamilton. That's the city core. And let's not forget Montreal, all red. And the same holds true for all of Metro Vancouver. Take it from an immigrant. When immigrants move into the country, they generally vote Liberal because that's the same party that offered social assistance. It's the same party that pays them each month more than Canadians get in old age security. They are now giving them free healthcare. They are able to stay at 4-star hotels. They get access to the same child benefit as you have as Canadians who've paid taxes your whole life. Sorry, your whole working life. Roughly $7,000 per child per year. Child of 3 gives you over $21,000 depending on their age. It might even be more. We are talking about more money than they would ever earn or save in their lifetime in 1 or 2 years. And I know what you're thinking. These are immigrants. They're not actual Canadian citizens. In the 90s, Canada was affordable, so nearly 75%. This is called the naturalization rate. The percentage of immigrants that come into Canada that then become citizens. Right now, it's at about 45%. We've seen a massive 30% drop because of how unaffordable the country's become under liberal policies. And that's why out in the Atlantic, you see a lot of red. More permanent immigrants heading for the Maritimes. And let's not forget that Canada grew by a record 1 million people solely from immigration. And we did it in under just 9 months. That's how we were able to hit a population of 41 million. And this article was from back in March 2024. Using 2023 data. A similar thing happened in 2022, 2021, to the point where the immigration minister said Canada should have acted sooner on migration. And guess what? As an immigrant myself, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. The Liberal Party is importing voters. Here's an example of something that should be questioned. How is it that the maritime provinces, the ones where all the immigrants are headed to and experiencing record growth, is it that they have 2.4 million people and have 32 federal seats? Alberta has almost double. Not quite, but almost. They only have 5 more seats. Why don't they have 60? Each voter in Atlantic Canada has 55% more representation than an Albertan. Take a guess which one's liberal and which one's conservative. My friends, there's always more to the story. This is what Pierre had. This is what he was given in this election. Why else do you think that Mark Carney launched his bid in Edmonton, this was back in January, to become the next prime minister and take over for Trudeau? He did it there because that's where he was raised. That's where he grew up. But remember, his riding was not there because he was at risk, and he knew that. And where was Mark Carney's riding? It was right beside Pierre Poilievre's in Nepean, the red zone. My friends, these things do not happen by accident. And let me remind you, how did Carney get his seat? They kicked out a sitting member of parliament, Chandra Arya. They revoked his ability to re-enter nomination so Carney could have a safe seat. There's always more to the story, and I can promise you, you won't see this on TV, you won't see this on the news. Share this. Share this with everyone you know, because that, my friends, is the truth.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of suspicious stuff. A lot of suspicious stuff. This election, this election is really gonna make people look into it harder. I mean, there were so many plot holes and twists and tells that I myself even noticed. The fact that when we covered the election, we were streaming it Monday night. They barely got 15% of the vote, but they automatically assumed that Mark Carney was going to win. They announced that Mark Carney was going to win. That was across CBC, CTV, Global, City News, CPAC, through the Canadian press. They all assumed that Mark Carney had won, with only less than 15% of the vote coming in. Just assuming the votes that came in from Atlantic Canada, not including the rest of Ontario, not including the rest of Quebec, not even counting the Prairie provinces or BC for that matter. But they just called it for Mark Carney immediately, hoping that people would just go to sleep and that's it. Okay, Mark Carney won. Good night. And not even counting the advance polls, which there was over 6 or 7 million people that went to the advanced polling. It was the highest turnout for advanced polling in this nation's history. They didn't even count any of those, but they just assumed Mark Carney had won. So there's a lot of tells. And that writing in particular, Mark Carney announcing in Edmonton, then running in Nepean, taking over Chandra Aryan's spot there, kicking him out even though he's been a popular candidate there for many years. It's all suspicious. It's very all suspicious. And here's DC Media. Also of note, the Carleton boundaries were redrawn to include more of suburban Ottawa, and there are 40,000 new voters in that riding. So it says right at the bottom here, this is from the Elections Canada site, this community faced rapid growth in a decade, soaring from a population of 89,000 to 131,000. So wouldn't you think that they would have to have their own separate riding if there's more people? As Mario pointed out, Alberta has double population than Atlantic provinces. So wouldn't it make more sense? Wouldn't it make more mathematical sense that Alberta gets more districts than Atlantic Canada, considering there's more people? Wouldn't that make more sense? Gained rural communities such as Fitzroy, Harbour, Dunrobin, Cunburn, and Constance Bay from the former Canta Carleton riding. So that was the other riding that got incorporated to make one Carleton riding. Acquired areas such as Bell Corners west of Highway 416 and south of Barnsdale Road from the Nepean riding. Transferred the Finley Creek area to the Ottawa South riding. So this is gerrymandering. This is stuff that the United States would constantly do on an average day. And as I stated here, this is corrupt gerrymandering. For a country that claims it doesn't want to be America, we sure used a lot of the same unethical tactics to politically deceive Canadian citizens and override democracy. Elections Canada need to investigate this. Absolutely. How is it that in a short few months they boosted up the population by importing migrants in specifically this area, then change the election riding to have two ridings form into one, get 91 candidates to run in that specific riding, knowing that Pierre Poilievre is in that riding and has won many, many times since 2004, I do believe, and he lost his seat. How is that possible? How is that possible that nobody even bat an eye on just how crazy that is, on how that should be investigated? 91 candidates. Do you really think it was purpose that was done for just the fact of democracy, that there was 91 people that want to run in this campaign? Or was it, hey, we need people to split up the votes? And if you notice the outcome of that riding, it was a very, very low numbers, what it used to be for that particular riding. Again, to split up the votes, potentially. So it's very all suspicious, and I hope there's further investigations. I mean, we're going to look into it as much as we can, but I hope that people are awakened by this, that they're looking into details. Again, there were so many things that are head scratching and people don't understand, and how it came to be. It just seems like it was all fabricated. That's what it seems like to me. It was all fabrication, that Mark Carney instantly came here in a moment of time to fix a crisis, that he thought, oh, I'm going to be here. I'm at the right place and right time. I'm going to be a savior for Canada, even though we know his horrendous background defies against Canadians, defies against this nation, comes in at the nick of time and wins the election. Wins the election with a bunch of slogans and a manufactured campaign to go against America. And yet they're using the same tactics of gerrymandering purposely to unseat their opponents, Pierre Poilievre. It just seems so crazy. And it's even more crazy that no one seems concerned about that. No one's up in arms. You'd think people of Carleton would be up in arms about that. Like, you have 91 candidates in a one ballot. Do you know how big that paper would be? You know how crazy it is to wait there and read off every candidate and try to fold up that paper into the box? I'd be frustrated. I'd be pissed off. I'd be wondering what the hell's going on here. Why do we have running mates in the marijuana party? Even though I never heard that there was a marijuana party in Canada. Did that just happen? Did they just created that? What's their platform? Because marijuana is legal. So what else do they offer? What else do they offer? It's way too suspicious. Way too suspicious for people to just be okay with this.